Commence primary ignition.
I'm just not the hero type, clearly.
What a piece of junk.
Enterprise, this is the captain.
I got a bad feeling about this.
It's all part of the plan.
Engage.
Welcome back to Podcast 2 for 1. I'm your host, Donovan Thompson, with my co-host,
Daniel Wingfield.
And we're back again with Dr. Bruce Hutchinson.
Glad to be here once again.
Yes.
Last week we watched, or we went through the script and we broke down Batman Begins, and we're back to talk The Dark Knight. And of course, if you haven't, go subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell below to stay up to date on all future episodes.
Go watch that Batman Begins episode. It's good. It's really good.
It's really good.
15. It was convenient. I didn't even put this together.
I didn't either.
We released the movie the day after its 15th year anniversary. I was
Yeah.
really trying to get it out on that
I know.
day. The audio kept messing with me, but very appropriate that we're getting these out.
Yeah.
It's wild to me. 15 years since that movie.
I know.
Yeah.
Literally,
Wow.
I was 12 when it came out, so I
I was probably 13.
fixing to turn 13. Yeah. Anyway, we're back. Let's start The Dark Knight. So everyone, we all read it.
Oh, yeah.
We all
Yes.
watched it.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Cool. So let's we can do like we did last time, some general thoughts, I guess. We can kind of get into, and then we can kind of go into the sequences and the acts and that kind of thing.
Bruce, I want to hear your thoughts first.
Yeah.
Well, as we're going to get into it, I do have a lot of plot problems with this movie. I think it's over plotted, which I'll explain what I mean by that, and we can get into that. But having said that, I still really like the movie a lot. I watch it at least once a year.
Yeah.
And I just think, building on what we talked about last week, it was really, it was the first, well, I shouldn't say the first in a long time superhero movie that really felt set in the real world. And we talked about that with Batman Begins, but it still wasn't all the way into the real world.
Right.
Sure.
This feels very much like the real world, a little twisted, but the real world. In fact, you mentioned the 15-year anniversary, and I just read a quote from Christopher Nolan recently that when he was talking about The Dark Knight, that he was sort of making Batman imagining the original Superman with Christopher Reeve in the 70s, and like that kind of set in the real world superhero movie.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah.
This is a kind of side topic. Is Superman the movie take place in the 70s? I don't know. I mean, I'm asking because there's a moment where it opens up and there's like this kid reading a 40s comic, and then it goes into it. I don't know. It's one of those things I've always had a question about.
I don't think that's I don't remember that being in the original Superman movie, but it's been a long time since I've watched it. But yeah, I mean, the movie came out, I think, in 78, maybe
78,
somewhere right in there. And it's set
Or
in
79.
present day
Yeah.
at that time. So,
Right.
yeah.
He does it. That's a bad suit. Whenever Superman gets his suit for the first time.
It's been I think I've seen that movie on TV once. Probably on like Turner Classic
You
Movies.
really need to watch that movie. Yeah, no, that's great. So Daniel, what do you think about The Dark Knight? 10 years later. Actually, it's 12 years later.
Yeah. So like I said last week, I've kind of been in this place of where I've always kind of felt Batman Begins for me was I liked it more. I enjoyed it more. I'm not sure I can say that anymore right now. I think, and we'll get into this, what The Dark Knight does well, it's almost perfect what it does well. You know what I'm saying? And those moments for me, and there are issues, like I've even more can kind of formulate what the issues are I have with it. But those big positives are so positive, and they resonate so much. Like you're still thinking about them after the scene is gone. Like it really does help paper over some of those issues.
Yeah.
And that that sounds like a criticism, right? When we say, "Oh well, it's so good that it papers over its cracks," but every movie has cracks of some kind. All movies do, and so it works really well as a movie. It's just an entertaining, kind of emotive journey that you go on, and you just from the beginning to the end you're locked in. And I don't feel like it ever loses my focus, and I'm always entertained. I'm always, enjoying it. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm interested to get to the kind of the end of this conversation and talk about the negatives of Batman Begins versus these and all that, and really line it up. But man, it might hold up better than I thought.
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing this in theaters and walking away, just again, like Batman Begins, blown away, and just being like the conversation for a very. I mean, we're talking about today for a very long time. We're talking about this movie. I guess kind of to encompass it all. I agree with both of you. I I just remember walking away, watching this weekend, and just kind of going this little depressive state of like, I want to watch a superhero movie that's not this one, that's at the same caliber, and I just don't know where. I can't find that right now, and it's kind of depressing. You can find it in different ways, but just like on a filmmaking level, an acting level, score, cinematography, all that stuff, it's just it's like a classical of film, you know, and it happens to be a superhero movie, and yeah, it's great. It's great stuff. Now, Batman Begins versus that, we'll get to that later. I don't know yet. Yeah. My opinion will literally change while we're doing this next.
Yeah.
But so let's get down to the nitty gritty. My favorite thing we did last time was kind of break these things down by sequences and acts. So let's start the movie off. Let's talk about Act 1.
Yeah. Can I give a I forget the word for it, but I do want to say when we sort of do these breakdowns, for especially for viewers who haven't necessarily written a lot of scripts or whatever, we're not claiming that the writers or directors necessarily had built the movie around the structure that we're sort of describing. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. We don't know.
True.
So we're kind of digging in and finding that structure really based on the protagonist's goals, right? That's everything. That's like what we used to do in our classes and stuff. And so, you know, those are there. And whether the writers thought, okay, this is the act or this is the sequence or whatever, if we can go in and we can find what those goals are that are kind of overarching in different places, we can break down the structure regardless of whether that was the specific intention, because that stuff is in there, right? So
no, that's great.
That'd be interesting. I'd love to just all like say what our thought is for as far as the goal of Act 1 and see how we lined up on that.
Want to compare them all?
Yeah. So you go first, Bruce.
Okay. Well, so I think this has both sequences and acts, just like Batman Begins.
Absolutely.
So for me, Act 1 runs to about the 40-minute mark. The climax is Lau being delivered to Gordon, and then all of the mobsters being arraigned in court.
Right.
And so basically, I'd say that the goal is to get the mob, stop the mob.
That is literally what mine says. Yeah, catch the mob.
I say it's pages 1 through 42. The goal is to stop the mob, and it ends with the mob is arrested under RICO, and then Joker is enlisted to kill the Batman.
Yeah,
so that's kind of where we
and it does a good job, I think, of that act. The characters that's all they're thinking about and acting on the entire act. I mean, yes, the Joker comes up, and Harvey Dent is a key part of that, but it's a really focused act for me.
Yeah.
That just it does a lot of good things. It reintroduces us to Gotham post Batman and how things are changing, and it also just shows how Batman is continuing to be like this force outside of the bounds of law that can do anything he wants in the name of justice. I don't know. I like the first act a lot.
Yeah,
I do too. I actually I think it's my favorite act in the movie. We can get into that.
I don't know. I want to say it's maybe the most tight, but there's just some scenes in the later acts that I think steal the movie's show.
We can definitely
in a way,
get into those.
Yeah. That it's like it's hard for me to give it that, but yeah.
I also want to mention that at least to start, the structure is kind of similar to Batman Begins. So if you remember, after the exposition of Act 1 in Batman Begins, Act 2 was about the mob, and then Act 3 was about Scarecrow, and then Act 4 was about Ra's. And here we're going to have the first act being about the mob, and then the second act being about the Joker. And then the third act is about the Joker. And the fourth act is about the Joker.
Third act,
but
that's right.
The third act is weird.
But it does kind of have that same, it starts off with the mob and then moves on to a bigger criminal behind the mob. Basically.
And I think that's a really good thing for a superhero film. I think, not just getting to the villain, Act 1, let's make him the inciting incident or something. I like that. I feel like it's a nice gradual build up that feels more satisfying when we do get the big villainy reveals later on.
Yeah. I mean, we saw in Batman Begins, it worked so much that way because the villain at the end is the villain, or it was the guy you learned about in the first act, right? So it kind of gets to carry. And this one, Joker's doing his thing in the beginning, and of course he's a huge part later. I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's kind of complicated. I mean, I do like that aspect of building off,
What I like about it is that we catch Batman in medias res, like we talk about. He's in the middle of working on the city.
Yeah.
He's in the middle of cleaning up the city and really kind of picking right where he was from Batman Begins. I mean, he took down Falcone, but the rest of the mob's still out there.
Right.
So he's picking up right where he left off. He's in the middle of finishing. He's in the middle of a mission because he's already, marked the bills and stuff. So I like that we're just picking up in like the middle of a typical Batman work cycle, I guess. He doesn't have work weeks, but whatever his cycle is, this is another, another run of the mill Batman duty kind of thing.
I mean, also, you want to start the movie off pretty strong with the cool action sequences.
Which started off the movie. I mean, you brought up the very first thing.
Let's get into it. Let's talk about these sequences that are in the Act 1. So I would, of course, the movie opens up with Joker and his men and the heist of stealing the money from the mob. And you got this, this great introduction to the character. Yeah. You have this great, like, everyone's kind of turning on themselves moment. And, that, of course, that's like the first probably 6-7 minutes.
I think it's 8-ish.
8 minutes.
Maybe.
Opening sequence here where it's basically like, you just kind of get to know the Joker and see him, and it's pretty
establishes
basic.
him well.
Yeah, established the cool. It's a cool scene,
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a great setup. We talked about how good the first act of Batman Begins is. I think this one is just as strong, maybe stronger, in the sense that we are starting with an action opening, but it's the antagonist in action rather than the protagonist, which does a lot of the work of giving us the exposition of Joker through an action sequence, right? Mm-hmm. So we see, like you said, the way he sets all of the criminals he's hired against each other, so he's the last one remaining. We see his cleverness. We see his smarts. We learn about
the mob.
We learn about the mob bank. So we get a lot of exposition about what's going on and the Joker, but we're doing it within an action sequence. Yeah. Which in a lot of, now Batman Begins had a lot more exposition that it needed to do. Yeah. But notice that it didn't really do as much action with that. It
was more time.
He'd start talking to Roz and we flash back, and there wouldn't be a whole lot of action in those flashbacks.
Yeah.
Here we're we've got the action going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Cool.
And by the way, you mentioned the cast at some point and the quality of the acting. I mean, when you've got an actor like William Fichtner doing just the mob, the mob banker, he has like half a dozen lines, and and
he kills it. I mean, remember him.
He's great.
Yeah.
He's great.
He kind of steals that scene along. I mean, only because Joker really isn't out most of that scene. He's kind of just doing things in the background, or you kind of know who he is, but the mob boss really has one of the biggest kind of moment when he's walking with that shotgun and like, do you know who you're stealing from?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
He's Prison Break? Is that what he's in? People watch Prison Break?
The TV show?
Yeah. I think he
might be. I can't remember. That was a long time ago.
I feel like that's what I know him from the most.
He's a great actor, and to have a character actor of his caliber doing a one scene basically.
Yeah. No, it's great.
That's cool. Let's get that sequence 2, Bruce. What do you have down for that?
So sequence 2, for me, a goal is to take down the mob banks.
Do you see? I had a sequence in between, and that was basically reintroducing Batman or reintroducing Gotham, because you get this montage of Gordon talking on the rooftop with Ramirez, him saying, I'm just leaving the light on to remind people he's out there. Then you get a montage of like the drug dealers not willing to deal when the light's on. And then, of course, the big re-entrance scene, which is him with the fake Batman and Crane and, the Chechen, all in that moment. To me, that sequence really felt like the point of this is just to get us back into Gotham with Batman and see where we are after the Batman Begins.
Yeah, I think it's natural to see the
I mean, there's not a goal, I guess, would be the biggest difference there.
I mean, I think his goal is to stop the Scarecrow or stop this, these criminals, and that's Batman's goal.
But it's almost more to stop the cosplayers. I don't know, I call them cosplayers in my notes.
Yeah, I still had that in the first sequence. I can see, I mean, only sort of time-wise. I mean, because, you've got that first 6 or 7 minutes that's just the Joker, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, that kind of almost acts like its own thing. And then you get another 4 or 5 minutes with that scene where we then pick up Batman and he gets Scarecrow and
I'm not wearing hockey pads.
Meet the Chechens. But, you know, I guess for me, if we're building sequences around usually the protagonist, then I sort of just put both of those together. Yeah. But of course, you could break them apart. I mean, it makes sense that in a sense they're two small sequences, right? Sure.
But I think one important thing about this I guess the second half of the first sequence, or however you want to do it, is that it kind of starts setting up a large theme here. Is, you know, who is Batman or what makes Batman different from everybody else? Yeah. Because the impersonators are saying, well, exactly what you just said. You know, well, what's the difference between me and you? And he says, I'm not wearing hockey pads, but we'll learn there's a big difference.
Which, by the way, I always thought he said hockey pants. I mean, it still worked for me. I was like, well, they probably were wearing hockey pants.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of funny because I do like that sequence and everything that it does and the action of it and Batman dropping on the van and all that. But that line, if I was going to write that line, I would have had Batman say, I have a tank.
Oh,
because he's getting into the Batmobile, you know? I mean, it's the same idea. It just feels a little stronger than I'm not wearing hockey pads.
The only reason I like the hockey pads is that he's making fun of them with it. It's kind of like, I'm also the best, but also you guys are idiots because you're wearing hockey pads.
I can see it. Yeah. No, I like both of them. Yeah. I think whenever I told Daniel this earlier, but whenever he like that lowers into him, like Christian Bale had to feel so fucking cool being lowered into the bat tank
when he's like getting lowered in when he says that.
Yeah, the way it's operated, it's just so cool looking. And it looks real. It's not like CGI. You know, it looks like they actually built that to lower into it. So just really, really cool stuff going on there.
Yeah.
So you're saying that you're in the end of sequence 1 for you is basically
the end of that.
I'm
not wearing hockey pads.
I'm not wearing hockey pads.
A little longer. So I had it. I mean, officially, I had about 11:40. I have it ending with Batman and Gordon deciding to take down
the mob,
the banks,
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when they're investigating Joker's bust,
right, and that's part of why it all ties into one sequence for me, because after that scene, we go to basically the next day. They're at the mob bank. They're seeing that their plan is working, and it's really cool because, as Daniel pointed out, you know, the goal, we're already in the middle of the goal. We haven't seen that goal set up. We just see the end of that goal, which is the radiated money is working, and we have 7 whatever different banks. Let's take them down, right? And so to me, that's the conclusion, and then that launches the goal of this next sequence, which is to take down the banks. Which, as we'll talk about, you know, that fails. Yeah. Right, because Lau gets the money out.
Right. Now we do have. I'm checking do we not have that scene with Alfred and him when he's bandaging his wound? That happens before the bank meetup, does it not? I'm trying to look right now.
Where Batman has no limits?
Yes, the Batman has no limits conversation. I believe
the bank sequence is important because there's something that I want to talk about.
The new gets one of this one in. Do you trust him? Let's see. Put this. No, let's see. No, it doesn't. That's right. That must happen after. So he goes straight from I'm not wearing hockey pads to him being in the bank.
There's a great little nugget here. You're right. So it's after the hockey pads,
it's
right?
After that, yeah.
Right to the vault. So there's a great thing in here about it's in the script too, but I'm pretty sure it's in the movie. But Ramirez, there's this like idea of I think it's talked about Gordon Ramirez on the rooftop before the thing, but she has someone in the hospital.
Right. She talks about her mom.
So that's like set up there.
Setting up
which I hadn't.
Yeah.
I hadn't picked up that little puzzle piece in the beginning before.
In the script, there's like a little extra line that kind of paints it more of like, I don't know, it's a little more, I can't remember what it was, but it adds a little extra that I probably didn't need, but I can't remember what it was.
But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting line because I think you're in saying like, I didn't pick that up. I don't think most people probably pick it up the first time around. I mean, you hear that line, but there's so much going on in this movie that by the time it pays off, I don't think anyone's going to remember that setup.
It's like almost an hour and a half later before that comes back into play.
Right.
And it's, exactly, the setup. Now, it is satisfying on watching it back. It's like, oh, that's a really nice, tight circle of storytelling. That's, they didn't waste space, right? But yeah, it is something that
At the same
Did
time,
it-
it's
did it
almost
need- did it have-
exactly. It's almost pointless
Exactly.
unless you're watching the movie multiple
it's
times.
really fun
Yeah.
to analyze it and see it, but
Yeah.
Right.
it didn't really make or break the movie in any way.
Yeah, she says they checked her. I thought you had to go look after your mother, detective, and she says they checked her back into the hospital.
That's in the movie.
That's what. Yeah,
Yeah.
but there's an extra line after that, but yeah,
Oh, okay.
that's what is actually said verbatim. But yeah,
So yeah, it's after the scene with Alfred. Then is after him, Batman and Gordon in the bank.
well, there's also one thing I want to talk about in the vault real quick is that there's this also little nugget there of like Ramirez not liking that Gordon's working with Batman.
Right.
There's that kind of setting up this distrust between
Dude, we
Ramirez
don't
and
get it
Gordon.
there. We get it later when she says us contaminate it.
Yeah, but I thought there was something else in the vault.
There's like a look.
She
There's
seems a little resentful that
yes.
she's being asked to leave.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a moment there, like just kind of setting up these little
Yeah.
bitty
Yeah.
small threads until they become
Yeah.
something bigger, of course. Yeah. So you said that. So that ends the vault sequence, right? So then we have the next thing is you said, Daniel.
the scene with Alfred and bringing Bruce's breakfast in
Right.
which we've decided is, I guess this is just an underground facility under a train yard.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Just based on how Alfred gets there, but this is obviously a huge scene because we start setting up the theme.
It says
or one of the themes we might have. I mean, I
It's-
think the,
yeah.
the theme I've most kind of focused on or picked up on is really set up here, which is what Batman is, I guess. What is Batman, or what is his ultimate role to play? And at this point, Bruce is just he's the symbol for justice, and he has no limits. Is how Bruce feels about it at that point.
Also, the script says it's a railway bridge, and it's like a freight container.
That's how it happens. He goes down in a freight
Yeah,
container.
you
in the
said
movie.
you were kind of talking about where it's at. I
Yeah,
was just,
yeah.
with the script.
Bat bunker.
Bat bunker.
This is and starting a little bit of complaining or criticizing here, and this sort of carries over from stuff we talked about with Batman Begins, is the theme that, or the relationship with Alfred and what exactly Alfred wants or is trying to tell Batman, because here he seems to be saying you have limits and you can't keep doing this forever, basically, right?
Yeah.
And then when Bruce finally decides that he's going to step away, Alfred's like, no, you
Endure.
can't do that. Yeah, and his advice is to endure. And I'm like, well, what do you want? Like,
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
It's like Bruce can't win for trying with Alfred.
Now, the only way I can rationalize this is that Alfred's playing some motherfucking 4D chess with Bruce right now, and he's pushing him to say he's pushing him to actually just internalize and figure out who Batman is, because you don't know your limits unless you know who you are.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm stretching, guys. I'm stretching. I'm fighting for you, Alfred.
I think there's probably you could really kind of go that route and break down that he's wanting Batman to become kind of what he ends up becoming, which is like this something that's not physical. You know what I'm saying? That's you can say that, but it's not really articulated well enough.
It's not, and the problem is too, like the whole idea of that is introduced by Bruce in Batman Begins. I become a symbol. I become more than a man. I
Right.
become greater than what a human can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it starts getting a little muddy here.
I love the character of Alfred, and I love their relationship, but it always seems like Alfred wants one thing from Batman or from Bruce, and then when he tries to do it, Alfred seems to want the opposite, and it always just drives me a little crazy.
Yeah, he seems very it's not articulated because he seems very like he's always conviction in what he's saying, like this is what I think, but it seems like there's an internal struggle there we're just not seeing because he's playing in a certain way every time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So the next, so this sequence here, I guess, where would this end, Bruce? What do you think this sequence ends at?
So I think the sequence ends when they do the raid on the banks and all the money has been taken.
Okay.
Right. So that's the climax because the goal has failed. Right.
Gotcha.
If the goal is
Stop the mob,
is to get
Stop the mob.
take down the mob banks, right?
Yep.
Then they go and the raids fail, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so during all that, we get to introduce to right after that Wayne Alfred scene, we get
Harvey Dent
for the first time.
When they start looping, we get the scene. No, that's on the rooftop later. Get the scene between Harvey and
which is a great and Rachel. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I was
Rachel's
thinking the later one.
reintroduced. Yeah,
which to be honest, I prefer the original Rachel. Hashtag original Rachel for me.
I'm just not going to say anything. I like this actress better as an actress.
Okay.
Better.
Well, Maggie Gyllenhaal brings a lot more weight, in my opinion, to the character of Rachel than Katie Holmes. Now, to be fair to Katie Holmes, I think maybe, although the actual time frame is very short, but in some sense, Katie Holmes does feel like the young version of Rachel, and then Maggie Gyllenhaal feels like the more mature version of Rachel.
Yeah.
The difference is that almost no time has passed between the
6
two
months
movies.
or something.
I think Katie might be a little cuter, but I think that Maggie is a much better actress and a better person in the.
I don't know. I just had a hard time with some of Maggie's delivery on some lines.
There's some things I wasn't a huge fan of, but I mean, again,
I think she's really strong.
compared to the other, I think I'm okay with it. But you get this great who Dent is, right? He's this. When I remember watching this the first time when the goon shoots him or tries to shoot him and it
Great
breaks,
scene.
he's like Buy American and basically whips his ass in front of everybody. And then also on top of that, it's like I'm not done with him when everyone cheers. That's just a great all-American Boy Scout. That's what it is. He's set up like this perfect Captain America-like character, but like someone who's behind the law, you know, and that someone you just like
The White Knight.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Someone that you would see only in movies, kind of character.
Well, yeah, and I mean, Aaron Eckhart's jawline could cut through steel.
Yeah,
you know? I mean,
he is amazing. He's like perfect. Like, yes, I don't know
perfect
how.
casting.
I don't know how they could ever top that for a Two-Face.
We also during this a lot happens in this sequence. We also have the setting up and the cancellation of the Lau deal, and the interaction between Bruce and Fox.
Yes.
And Fox is great.
He is.
I think unlike Alfred, who we can't quite always figure out sort of what his motivation is, I think Fox comes through so crystal clear in terms of who he is, why he's doing what he's doing, what his morals are.
Yep, absolutely.
They're very, very clear. And Morgan Freeman, again, is fantastic.
I think I told him earlier is that, of course, it feels like this script was absolutely, his character was written for Morgan Freeman this time, even though it's like it's very much the same character, but it's like they just know Morgan Freeman's doing it, and so the lines are tailored for him.
And it's funny because when you read the lines, if you didn't know that he was going to do them, they feel kind of
pedestrian.
Yeah. But which just goes to show you what an actor can do with lines. Because I agree, because you're reading it and you're hearing it as Morgan Freeman. Of course, they knew they had him.
And just the way he pauses and the inflections, that's more like it.
And he's always got, it's not sarcasm, but almost every line he delivers, there's just this little smirk behind it, you know? He's having a ball, both the actor and the character. I mean, you get the idea that Fox loves that he gets to help.
He's
Bruce
like
be
Batman's
Batman.
brain power, basically.
Yeah. And I mean, he seems like an older guy who he may not have a whole lot to do, and it's just exciting.
Well, he's also
for
still
him.
running the company.
Yeah, he is. You're right.
But
Yeah,
I do agree. I feel like you can feel.
Although we never see him do it, so that's why it feels like he's got nothing better to do. But
in my head,
he
he's just
tells
some
people what to
retired
do,
guy,
basically.
Right.
But I feel like you can feel Morgan Freeman enjoying the role through his performance. Like he just seems like he's just having a blast.
Yeah, there's some great stuff.
It's like a role made for him.
One thing I want to go back real quick is in the Rachel Dent scene when they first introduce him. We also get the I choose my own luck, basically. That's starting to set up there too. The idea that I make my own luck, right? So we have the coin introduced, which of course is will of course pay off big time.
Yes,
as the movie goes on. Also a great line. Tee off's at 1:30. More than enough time to put you away for life. And what an amazing line. So we have. I'm trying to go through the script here. You said it ends with Lau basically taking the money, right? So this is where we
that's the end of the sequence is them raiding the banks. They're empty, but then that starts the Joker and Lau sequence, I guess, scene with the Joker introducing himself to the mob, and then Lau revealing he's moved all the money before anyone could act.
So that'd be sequence 4, right? Or
three.
The sequence 3. Okay.
Yeah, the beginning of
sequence 3 is basically getting Lau.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And of course, one of the best scenes in the movie, which is Joker's formal introduction,
his magic trick
to the mob, which I think is you mentioned reading Fox's lines. For me, reading Joker's lines was like, I mean, these are good Joker lines.
Right.
But
They take on a whole new
exactly.
life.
It's like I'm not even reading the same script when I'm reading those lines versus watching them perform in them. You know what I mean?
I understand. I mean, it makes a huge. I mean, there's little things he does that are not in the script that of course enhances the dialogue. There's pauses. There's eating cheese in this moment that's not in the script.
Yes, his cadence where he pauses, where he laughs.
Yeah.
Well,
it just goes to show you that sometimes if you're writing a script and this may not, if it's good and you're like it's not amazing, sometimes you get to make that leap there logic that well maybe my actors can do something with it, which enhance it even more.
It made me wonder if they knew he was the Joker when they started writing this.
I don't know.
When they were writing those lines, did they know it was going to be Heath? I wonder.
Who knows?
Even if they did, I don't think there's any way they could have known
he would do what
he was going to do
yeah.
it. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Agreed. Totally agree.
Yeah, so basically Lau has already taken all the mob's money out of their banks, and he is fled to China. China, right?
Yeah,
China?
Hong Kong.
Yeah,
Hong Kong.
So he's going to Hong Kong, and same, because of course at the same time this being intercut with Gordon ransacking the banks, and of course the money's gone. He's kicking, piles of money, which was not in the script. I thought was a great little thing. But at the same time, Joker's being introduced, and he's more of like this little fly in the ointment for the mob that just kind of appears and kind of interrupts their meeting. And he's got the bomb, and
sure.
He even has a corny line like something about blowing up or something.
Let's not blow this out of proportion, which is great. I don't think that's in the script necessarily, but it's like a great cheesy joke to make a play on. I love it.
Yeah, there's a cheesy joke there, and you get set up. So much money for the clown, which I think pays off really quickly after that. Actually,
It's in the script. Let's not blow this out.
Okay. Just maybe his delivery of it. Again, it's like one of those things where I read in the script. I was like, okay, that was a line. Yeah. And then in the movie, how he delivers it, I always remember that line and how he delivers it.
One thing I want to go back and talk about is the scene where Gordon and Dent talk for the first time, because you get the sense that Gordon or Dent was working for Internal Affairs, where he headed to Internal Affairs, and that he investigated people in Gordon's unit, which is super important. And then also, there's like this animosity. There's always animosity.
There's tension.
From Internal Affairs as a cop. There's in every movie ever, and probably in real life, there has to be. You're investigating our friends, kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a huge thread there of them trying to trust each other, and him giving the ability to actually go and he's like, I can give you the name of the bank, so we'll have to start.
Yeah, and then I guess at the beginning of the fourth sequence, which would be getting Lau. Would that what you call the fourth sequence?
I'd call that the third sequence.
Sorry.
All in one. Even him going to there is all in one. You're saying?
Yeah. So for me, that sequence starts in the movie around the 26-minute mark. So in the script, I think it would be probably after your light went out again.
We put brand new batteries.
New batteries in this mother.
I guess your batteries aren't too.
I know.
That's great.
It's sexy
I'm so
though.
at it again.
It is sexy.
Hell yeah.
But there's a lot of little things.
I think for me the big scene with Joker and the mobsters is at the end of the second sequence, and then right after that, Gordon discovers that the money is missing, and then that kicks us off into the third sequence, which is we have to go get Lau. Right?
Yeah. So the goal of sequence here is Lau.
Yeah.
Get Lau back. Yeah.
Gotcha,
But then you also get just another at the very beginning when they're planning that Bruce, Dent, and Gordon on the roof is a great moment.
Yeah,
it's amazing. Yeah, it's an amazing moment.
And very important. I mean, they're all kind of starting to work together. They're starting to make this plan that will end up kind of being the partnership that drives the movie. I mean, you made this point too. This movie is more of an ensemble movie at times than a Batman movie. Like the fact that we leave him so frequently and even for long periods of time, and we're following Gordon or Harvey or the Joker. We kind of get this set up as like these three are going to be the protagonist team.
Right.
Obviously Batman's the main one, but this is the team he's working with.
Yeah.
And I love the dynamic of the relationship that they set up with that scene. It's really nice. And of course the great joke, which is he does that, which is I love that.
And we have some on the nose, but I think still cool dialogue. Gordon says that Harvey, when he first meets Harvey, when he goes into his office, he says, he's the White Knight.
Yeah.
Compared to the Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Right.
Of course.
Gotham's White Knight.
One thing I feel like there's a lot going on. There's constantly so many different scenes here. We have Lau and Fox,
getting the new suit.
Yeah, get in
because that's happening in the sequence. He gets his new suit because he's asking about the sky hook to go to Hong Kong. Yeah. It's a pretty dense sequence.
I mean, even Lau and Fox. Lau is like, "Hey, we'll come do business with you over there," and Lau's like, "I know who actually runs Wayne's business." And then there's the big thing I think also is just you have the dinner sequence. The dinner sequence with Rachel and Bruce.
Yes,
that's huge.
It's a huge moment. And you brought up the White Knight thing. I hadn't caught this before, but when the Russian ballet dancer is like, "Are you the Cape Crusader?" Right. She shows up like a white card.
Yeah.
And it's like showing him from the the nose down with a white card, and I was like, "Holy shit, that's great." White Knight. Yeah, that's so good. I didn't catch that kind of symbolism there before. And
that's actually in the second sequence that takes place right before the Joker meeting with all the mob.
Really?
Really? In the script, maybe it's just different in the script.
No, it's in the script.
Okay, I'm just getting it mixed up in my head. I guess this movie goes so fast.
Yeah,
that's the thing. It does not. It really picks up, and we're going scene to scene.
Oh, you're right. It's literally right before that sequence. Yeah.
Because then what's going to happen in the third sequence? He's going to go to get Lau, and they're going to set up the idea that he's absconded with the entire Russian ballet. Right. Yeah. That's his cover story.
You're right. Well, I want to talk about this scene though with Dent at the dinner table. There's a lot of things here. There's Bruce poking at Dent for liking ballet. So there's kind of this like little rivalry there because
he's just playing the role as the billionaire asshole.
There is, but there's also you have my girl kind of thing there, and so it's kind of you're starting building that love triangle there. But the big thing there is just this is the moment where Bruce literally starts believing in Harvey Dent.
He's testing. He wants to see in person whether this is the guy.
Yeah, and because he says, I'll give you a fundraiser, and after that fundraiser, you'll never have to dime or cent again. But just the way, of course, just Dent being Dent just wins Bruce over, and it's also I think when he's watching him, this is my chance to stop being Batman, so I can actually
he's looking at Rachel, who he wants to be with, and looking at the guy next to him and thinking he can get me to her.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I think. Maybe like illustrating some of the earlier character flaws of Batman, which is he's just at this point I feel like yes he is wanting that, but I also feel like he's kind of rushing it to me a little bit. It feels like he's so eager to take off the cape and get to Rachel throughout this movie that to me it feels a little bit like I don't know, like he's and this may come into fact later that he's kind of banking so much on Harvey.
I'm not sure if he's gotten there yet. I mean, I think maybe this is more about just getting the measure of Harvey in terms of can they trust him and can they bring him in on the plan. I think it's probably once he begins trusting Harvey after this that he begins to start seeing, well, if I can trust Harvey and he can be the legal way to do all this, then maybe I don't have to be the Dark Knight. So I think it's more of an evolution. I don't think he's necessarily already on page 22 doing that, but it's starting the ball rolling.
I won't lie, I feel really stupid because as many times I've seen this, I've never thought to myself, Bruce Wayne walked in there to purposely run into Dent to test him. I've always been like, they were just going there. And
that's exactly what
he's doing. Of course that's what he's doing. It's just
for one, just because Bruce is never going to go out on the town with a girl unless he has to.
And it just kind of pisses me off. I just didn't, but whatever, I'm not perfect.
Well, and if you look at Christian Bale's performance, just in that moment when he first sees them, you can tell there's just that little bit of like, oh, fancy meeting you here, right? That you're like, oh, okay, this is why he's there. I feel like
he's also doing that in a way that Rachel's picking up on it, or that he's intending her to pick up on it. Like, of course,
she's kind of even like rolling her eyes almost in some points, like when he's picking at him and everything else. Like you're being a dick. Well, she even sort of thing. Yeah. So okay, basically, go get Lau, right?
Yeah.
So that brings us into the end of the act. Really, once they get back with Lau.
Yeah, but there's one cool nugget in here. We have the the badassness of him jumping off this thing, but I think
cool action sequence.
Cool action sequence, but I think an important nugget here is the sonar system. That's what that is kind of set up there.
Yeah. Yep.
Whenever Fox says, "Hey, this is a way to kind of map up the building," right? Basically, or turn off lights and do all kinds of cool things.
You mentioned last week that you thought Batman Begins is the most video game movie of them all. The sonar element is the most video gamey element of the entire, like especially at the end when he's like, it's like you're in a game and you like get paused and the narrator tells you what's happening next and then you got to go do it.
Well, it's literally like in the really popular Batman games that have been out the last 10 years.
Yeah, the Arkham series.
It's literally a button you hit and it goes
Right.
sonar.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
literally
Yeah.
enough feature of the games, which may have been because of the movie, actually, if you think about it. It may have been something like worse.
Arkham Asylum was out before this movie, I think.
I don't think so.
Maybe you might be right. I don't know.
Yeah, so we have, I guess after he brings him back.
That's the end of the act.
Yeah.
And now
and then we have the courtroom scene where all the mobsters get
Sure.
arraigned.
But that's still kind of the end of the act, you would say, right?
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's still the end of Act 1,
Yeah.
right? Because that's
Wrapping it up.
The larger goal is the getting of the mob.
Yeah.
I do like the action a lot in Hong Kong. One of the things that I also like about that, and is difficult with Batman movies in particular, is how you deal with superheroes on a global scale.
Yeah.
You know, and because they have these powers, how often and what can they get involved with? And normally we're just concerned with Batman as someone who deals with one city.
Yeah.
But seeing him in Hong Kong, you know, sort of going outside of his sort of normal haunts, I think is a lot of fun.
It is.
It is, and I think it also illustrates. Well, Joker says it when he's meeting with Batman has no jurisdiction.
Yeah.
And I think when he says that too, it's almost like, oh yeah, he doesn't. He doesn't have to stay in Gotham. He can go wherever he wants and chase anyone.
It's more
down.
of a psychological thing. I stay here because my parents.
Well, I think
it's a movie.
The
thing.
Gotham is the reason he's Batman.
Yeah.
He's there for Gotham.
And also a sequel, you go bigger. You typically, almost every sequel ever, you venture to different locations. You got to kind of get bigger and more global. And not always the case, but a lot of times.
But it is. I think it's also what's satisfying about it is that just the real life relationship with China and how tumultuous China is as a country, and they're just the way they police their people, and even everything that's going on with Hong Kong, you know, of recent. It's almost that stuff like, fuck yeah. Fuck the red tape jurisdiction. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
he got a guy that needed to get got, and he didn't have to go through like the all that kind of stuff. It just, there's something that illustrates to me even more of Batman's power as this outside of the law force, that he can basically overrule an entire government's,
look at
wills.
the script here. It looks like we have the Joker scene with Gamble before Batman does the getting Lau. Does that happen in the movie that way?
Yeah.
So that's a great little thing there.
because that's at the end of the scene. Lau's taking the money, and we find out he's on the plane already going back to Hong Kong, right? So
Right.
then,
Yeah, but I'm talking about whenever
Joker goes and kills Gamble.
Yeah, kills Gamble.
Oh, Joker, I think kills Gamble
Because in the script, it's before it's before Fox and Lau meet in China.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
I think it's intercut. I'm pretty sure it's
probably
intercut.
Yeah. But it's a great little nugget there, just setting up Joker psychology. Is the first, how I got these scars moment, right?
Well, it's interesting. It has nothing to do with the act or sequence goals, really.
No.
That stuff with the Joker is just for him and
just
setting
character
up
build.
his character and his personality and how he does things and his danger, I guess. I mean, there's nothing about that scene that has anything to do with the sequence or act.
You could literally plug that scene
You could move
almost
it around,
anywhere.
yeah.
You can move it around. It's probably just a nice break in between going from, of course, the Lao is in China to now we're on the Laos.
I will say that I think, and I didn't spend a lot of time thinking about this, when the Joker tells the different story to each person, I think he's tailoring the story to the specific person that he's talking to. And I don't know why he does that, other than that he's just sort of crazy, but I think he tells the story that he thinks the other person would want to hear and sympathize with. Because
I know Rachel's is the
wife. Pretty wife. With him, it's the abusive father.
Right. So I think he makes an assumption about this African-American gangster, right? That he must come from a broken home. And so he tells him this story of, his abusive father. And then, he tells this story about a wife too, so it kind of feels like those stories are tailored to the people he's talking to.
I hadn't thought about that.
What's the third one?
He doesn't get to say it. Batman shoots him before he can.
Yeah.
I kind of wish we'd heard him say
Now
it,
we're starting.
what was he gonna say to Batman?
Batman's now? What's his thematic one?
Yeah.
That's the best thing about that. He'll in any form he never gets to tell that story, because in every medium Batman kicks his ass. So
and two, just because Joker's origin story is so ambiguous in general.
Yeah,
which is I like that they pay homage to that.
Yeah, it's
him
just,
not having a clear one in the comics.
Yeah,
at all.
him doing that is just great character stuff, and it also just sets up the character just being
and another one of those scenes that, we talked about, one of those scenes that is so good that it like you just honestly that's intercut with if that's intercut with Lau, which I'm pretty sure it is, or the beginning of it at least. That's the one I think about more. Like Heath just steals that scene with everything he does in it. Just his mannerisms when he's telling the story. It's just it's so good. It's so good.
No, you're right. So see Act 2, I guess we can talk about now what we all think Act 2 is, right? So Bruce, you want to go?
Yeah, for me, Act 2 is basically get Joker.
Catch the Joker.
And,
Stop the Joker is what I have.
And the goal is complicated, but the goal is successful in that Joker is caught.
Yeah.
Now, of course, we find out later that Joker wanted to be caught.
Yeah.
But on the surface, the goal is successful. And this is interesting because one of the things that we're going to see in the structure here is a number of places where we get misdirection, right?
Yeah.
Where characters have goals and we think they failed, but actually they succeeded, or we think they succeeded and actually they failed. And it's really interesting the way the movie tries to do those twists. I admire it on the one hand because, of course, as we saw in Batman Begins, deception is a big part of how Batman operates. Sure. And to build it into the very structure of the movie is super cool.
It is.
On the other hand, as we'll start getting into in the second and third acts, this to me is where the plot issues come up, where things start becoming more and more problematic and unbelievable, but we'll get there in a minute.
Yeah, there's one big one, which is at the end of this act that we both have problems with.
The big the main misdirection of the act, which is Gordon.
Yeah, which with
Gordon's death.
Very problematic, I think.
I guess.
But let's go through. I like going through the sequences. I think it's just a good way to kind of constantly talk about it. So sequence 1 of Act 2. This is definitely, I would say, part of it is Lau's back in the prison, and it's Rachel and Dent getting them under the RICO. So it's trying the whole mob. It's Gordon.
Well, no, because they've got end of Act 2 or end of Act 1 is when they're all in the courtroom. They've already been all arrested.
Okay.
Yeah. So this would be.
I'm on page 40. My bad. 42 is where.
Yeah. So I would say, if we go to the first scene with Bruce, he's already setting up the fundraiser. For Harvey.
That's it. Yes.
Right.
And then in the very next scene,
because remember, we get in the scene with all the gangsters, we get the Joker card that the judge finds, and that's where they get the DNA of all the people that are threatened by the Joker.
Right.
Yeah.
So for me, and again, a lot of times what I do is I sort of look at the climax and work backwards because sometimes the goals aren't, especially on the sequence, aren't like super obvious. I would say this is where Bruce starts thinking that he can stop being Batman, right?
For sure.
We have the scene at the fundraiser with Rachel out on the patio, on the balcony, where he basically says that he wants to do that. And then the climax of this sequence is a little more obvious, and that's the death of the commissioner and the judge, right? And then the failure to get Harvey because Bruce has saved Harvey.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there is the thing also there. I guess we real quick prep it is just the Batman being killed, right? That's where it kind of starts off there's the
first Batman,
the scene with the videotape.
When he slams against the thing, which every time makes me jump.
And
but that's really that's like when Joker's a really big threat. He's actually killing people and hanging them now.
And really, like we said, this act is. Especially when you consider the misdirections that the Joker ends up pulling, he's almost the one. He is the one driving the act. Really, it feels like at times. Like for one, with that, he's doing sending the messages and all that. But two, like even in the ways that we can get this a little bit. The ways he's defeated, he wanted that, and he didn't get defeated.
I agree. Joker is driving the action, and the other characters are reactive to what he's doing. I mean, they form goals, but their goals are in response. They're always one step behind Joker, right?
Yeah.
So
they're not even worried about him until he attacks. Like he's not even really on their radar until the threat and everything happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll get to especially Act 3 and stuff, but there's a big case that he's driving more than Batman is. I mean, even the movie opens up with Joker.
Which if we're getting into the sequence, or sorry, have we set the first sequence? So the first sequence would mainly be
it's multiple things, I guess, right? You have the Batman hitting the windshield because he's basically telling Dent, you better watch out, the mob's coming after you now. Like, basically basically telling us what's fixing to happen, right? They're fixing to be targeted. So we get the first Batman being killed, and then from there you start kind of setting up.
But that's really the whole Batman being killed in the videotape just sets up the first sequence, I would say,
Yes.
which is to save Harvey, the judge, and the commissioner.
Yes, because
Did you agree?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that rolls into the party.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but Batman does have this. I mean, I think he at this point wants to step away, right?
Yeah. Like that's his next kind of.
But he can't do that because of Joker, right? And as you said, I mean, he hasn't really taken Joker seriously as a threat. He doesn't really even know about the Joker as a
we
threat.
get that line in the bank, one man versus
Right.
the entire mob.
Until, right, and so I think this is sort of his, this first sequence is his introduction to the Joker.
Sure.
I mean, almost literally because the Joker comes to his house.
Yes,
right?
and what's in that videotape, the home video threat Joker makes, he basically lays out his goals as a character to take down Batman.
Right.
We want to take down Batman and make you realize that everyone's still crazy and no one's as good as they pretend to be. There's Donovan's phone. It happens once an
I
episode.
don't think so.
What was it on your computer?
It is my.
But it
it's
dinged
on-
through your
but-
computer.
but
It dinged over here.
But it's on silent.
But it dinged through your computer because you got iMessage open.
Yeah, every episode.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Y'all get one. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. I think Bruce, you were talking.
Yeah, no, I mean, so we've got this great sequence where the Joker crashes Batman's party.
Now, I was saying this earlier. I would argue this is maybe the best scene in the entire movie.
I do like this sequence a lot.
Yeah.
Everything that happens at the penthouse, from the conversation with Rachel thinking that he's making fun of Harvey and he's not. Him, Harvey proposing, Bruce.
When Bruce grabbed the choke
holds
so,
it.
Yeah,
yes,
that's great.
That's so good though,
It's
man.
so good.
I love that when you see him walking up in just like game time mode.
Yeah.
It's like, it's so good.
Well, yeah, that's followed by
yeah.
the funny moment of like the couple and they're doing
Yeah,
stuff, and
yeah.
they're like, "Oh, safe room," and then Bruce also just completely disarms a thug and just
I love
all of
that.
it. All of it
breaking
is-
the shotgun.
All of
is
his great breaking the
amazing.
shotgun.
Yeah.
Rachel standing up to the Joker. Batman coming in and fighting everybody.
Now, it is that one thing when I was rewatching, I was like, if you'd just been quiet, he might have taken down the Joker now. Because the only reason the Joker gets away is because he throws you off a roof.
Yeah, but I think it would have been more problematic if she hadn't
Of
said
course.
nothing.
No, yeah, because he's,
Yeah, you got to give her.
Because he's about to kill, because the only reason she steps up is because he's about to kill that old man that says,
You look like my father.
because he said, we aren't scared of scum like you.
Yeah, I believe that's former Senator Patrick Leahy.
Oh, really?
of
The
Vermont.
actor?
Yes.
That's
in
awesome.
real life.
I think
yeah.
I think he has a role in every single Batman movie. I think I read that somewhere.
I don't remember
small
seeing
role.
him in anything
Yeah,
else,
he's
but
got cameos and all. He's a huge Batman fan.
yeah.
That's right. I read that
Interesting.
somewhere.
I love that.
But yeah, so you have Joker coming in, and what's great, when he grabs her by the face, you have that spinning camera, and then you have like these stylistic choices, and
The second
Yeah,
story of how I got these stars.
yeah,
Scars.
which is the scars, which is great, and then amazing one-liner,
You're gonna love me.
You're gonna love me, which is an amazing
yeah,
moment.
yeah.
So it's a great and it's a great just reveal of him being there, and it's also I think it's funny because I want to say this is one of the okay, we saw him in the bank, but I feel like this movie has more of Batman being in broad daylight or in a bright setting than any of the other movies.
The bank thing.
The bank scene, he's in like a bright room, and this whole scene plays out in a very bright room.
Which his costume looks the worst. His Batman Begins costume looks the worst in the bank scene because it's all lit up, and you can see the weirdness of it without the
nap
shadows.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it is like we're seeing Batman fight in bright light more than anything else. I feel like in this movie, or more than the other movies, as far as maybe outside of Rises.
I mean, it's not. It's nighttime during that scene. I think it's just the lights are inside
but he's
the
just
building.
using the dark. He's less about hiding in the shadows so much.
I don't know. I might disagree on that because I think every other than like he is on the batpod at one point, but I think every other time he's literally using shadows, and like again, he's not being very violent. He's like taking people out, by being tactical and shadowy and that kind of stuff. So I'm not sure I agree with that one, but
It's okay. You can be wrong.
all the time. But yeah, so we had this great, you're gonna love me moment, and then
I love the Alfred moment. You just scroll to I saw it. The Dent with Alfred is like, does any psychotic ex-boyfriends I should know? You have no idea.
Yeah, of course.
Also,
that's true.
though, Something incredibly sad that I also realized was when she said, "You've known Rachel your whole life," and he says, "Not yet, sir."
Oh,
and by the end of the movie, he
That's
has
sad.
known Rachel his own life.
Damn, I did not think about that.
I
That's
caught
sad.
that.
That's sad.
It is.
But no, that's great because we end up, of course, you let her go. You shouldn't have poor choice of words, and he drops her, and that kind of ends.
Now, also
that scene at least.
One more thing I picked up reading the script. Now, Ramirez is the one that comes to Gordon with, "Hey, the Joker's marked his 3 next target. It's Harvey, the commissioner."
Right.
And my thought is she probably sat on that. I bet she was told to wait to a certain point to tell Gordon that, so they didn't have enough time to save everyone.
Well, that, yeah, I mean,
because we know
it's
she's really like, she was the gatekeeper to that info getting to Gordon, so she easily could have known that for hours. Like, they could have gotten the results back from the lab hours ago. You know what I'm saying? And
we don't know, honestly.
Yeah,
it's hard to know how much time has passed.
Yeah. But what I'm saying, it just starts peppering in these like once you realize she's dirty, you're like, oh man, she had a lot of room to mess things up along the way and cause problems.
And of course, but yeah, you're right. But
I mean, if they had known about this 30 minutes earlier, they might have saved all 3 people.
Sure. And yeah, I mean, it may have been,
besides the commissioner, because he was a dummy.
It's just one of those things like, how do you know that the guy's going to drink the bottle?
This is where this is where the issues start coming. How does he know he's going to drink from the bottle? Getting the judge's DNA on the card, that could have easily slid out of the fold. I mean, it just, there's so many ways that couldn't have happened. And not only that, and of course I get, the Joker's got people everywhere, but she tosses the card aside and someone had to go get it.
Yeah, why did they think to take DNA from it? Or like, when did that happen?
And why did she think why I need someone to look at this card and after my trial today?
Yeah. I mean, does
that card is at
wait, is the card
is at Brian? Isn't the card at when they find? Well, or is it attached to the dead Batman?
It's attached to the dead Batman.
To Brian.
So that's it.
Oh,
so
he has a card attached to him. So it's not the one the judge finds in her briefcase.
That's the thing.
That one is?
Yeah, that card has the fingerprints of the 3 people on it, and that's how they get it back, is attached to Brian, and then they go test it. But they've actually they didn't get the commissioner's fingerprints directly because
they got it off the glass.
They got it off the glass or whatever.
Yeah.
But they got the judge's directly, and they got Harvey's directly, but I'm forgetting off the top of my head.
Does he touch the card at some point?
He touches it first.
Does he?
I never thought about the actual.
This is all things that I did not pick up on.
Yeah, I didn't either.
I thought that
I thought he was just got the
maybe
DNA
this is
from
pointing out some of the flaws of the film, because I'm like, I didn't follow that part.
I never made the connection that this card is actually traveling in the movie.
I didn't really, that they were all touching it.
It is.
Stuff.
I mean, I don't want to take too long in the middle of us talking, but I believe there's something at the beginning where Harvey
touches it in some way.
Touches the card.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Okay, well, I need to rewatch it now again.
Yeah, maybe tonight actually.
Find that later. We can put an addendum or something. But yeah. So the idea is that they've gotten all 3 of their DNA on the card, which is a little tough. And then. And then they get the card back. And then you're right. Then we start getting these, things like, how did they know that the commissioner tries to give a line about like, this is what I've learned in situations like this, but still that's
handle these
it's
situations.
Implying that he's done this a lot and someone could be watching him to see that he does.
But I mean, I get it. He gets threats all the time, which I'm sure is true.
It's still pushing things.
It's very pushing.
It is. It is.
And then we start getting some things like, Bruce rescues Rachel, and then later the Joker uses this because he immediately has figured out that Bruce Wayne is in love, or that Batman is in love with Rachel because of how quickly he saves her. But what else would he have done? Can we imagine Batman just, even though the other people are still in danger, I don't think we can imagine Batman just letting some woman go sliding off of a roof and dying, I mean,
but there is this line from Joker that he says that for a little bit there, I thought you were Dent. So, and you can imply that Dent's not in the room when Batman shows up, and then that, you know what I'm saying? So he starts going after Rachel because he thinks that Batman's Dent. So then therefore,
we'll get to that, whether he actually thinks
the script plays off that he actually doesn't know, and the movie seems like he he says that line, but he knows that it's not Dent.
Yeah,
But
so
see
it's
how
tricky.
So as far as him thinking Batman was Dent, to me, he only makes that assumption once Dent says he's Batman.
But
now that he's admitted it, that makes sense because of Rachel.
But it doesn't matter because his plan is he sends
that's right.
Dent and Rachel to two separate places, knowing that he can lie to Batman and send Batman to the wrong place.
Yes, yeah.
And he sent them there knowing that he believes that Batman is in love with Rachel.
Right, because basically when he
based
says
solely
that,
on the fact that he rescues Rachel in that moment.
Well, it seems like,
that seems like,
Yeah.
again, one of these things is a problem, but they start
They add up.
building up on each other.
The only explanation is that he has literally 7 different contingencies for one thing.
I know. And he's literally planned for anything that can happen.
Plan B, everyone. From plan A doesn't work. Which is like that's just, I agree.
So, and there's a little irony too with this party scene, because my biggest complaint, as we're going to see, is like you're saying, is that Joker seems to have planned an insane number of things that he couldn't possibly have known and planned, and it all comes off perfectly. And this is where the term overplotted for me comes in. But you mentioned that Harvey's not in the room, and so maybe it's Harvey. The other person, of course, who's not in the room is Bruce Wayne. And if Joker's so smart, he should have figured out that Bruce Wayne was Batman, and he never ever does.
But also, there's another thing there too, is that, and this is the comic thing, is that Joker doesn't care who Batman is. He's there
by
for
the end of the movie. Yes, but at this time he does.
You think so?
Because because his message in the video was Batman takes off the mask or I kill people every day.
But I could argue that he's just wanting to fuck with Batman. You know what I'm saying? He's just like, I know who you are. Even though I don't agree with that. I know he doesn't know who he is, but you know what I'm saying? There's that. He's just so crazy that also a part of it, the 90% of it for him is the game. It's not actually the results. You know what I mean?
Well, if he does have the line that says, "At first, I wanted to kill you."
Yeah,
he does say that.
He does say that. Yes.
But in the previous 24 hours, Batman has somehow, whoever Batman is, gone to Hong Kong, kidnapped Lau. So clearly he's got Batman has resources.
Sure.
You'd think he could figure it out pretty quickly.
That's the Clark Kent glasses thing. We're making that movie leap logic for superhero stuff. I mean,
overall, I mean, it's a great sequence at the penthouse, and the character stuff is all great.
Yeah, it is.
So I would say the next sequence then is protecting the mayor at the funeral procession for
Commissioner Loeb.
Commissioner Loeb.
Yep. Fun facts for you: Loeb is the name. This movie's based off, a lot of it is from the story of The Long Halloween, and when the writer is something Loeb and Tim Sale.
Okay.
So that's why he's named Loeb. It's based off The Long Halloween, which is
now this has that big
Harvey Dent
collecting evidence scene, sawing the brick. Now I'm not even he does like the multiple shots, and I was like, I was still watching. I was like, I still don't understand how this made it getting a fingerprint. Like as far as like doing the multiple rounds.
I think he's checking 3 different bullets, right? And through knowing the bullet, then he can put it back together, and right. Isn't that what he's doing?
But why can't he just examine the fragments of the bullet and know what kind of bullet it is?
It's movie. It's not even real.
It's a fun sequence. The Gatling gun.
Yeah, it's one of those technology sequences that kind of makes sense, but the firing of the different bullets is from different distances, so they can figure out how the pattern of the shatter.
Yeah.
And so once they figure out the pattern of the shatter, I guess they can reconstruct the bullet, and once they've done that, they can see the fingerprint.
Yes.
Which, when they say that, it's like, is that really how you have to do that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
it is.
It barely follows.
Yes. I agree.
I'm not sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's cool. And especially when he's chawing out, he's like, how are you going to get ballistics out of that? Fingerprints. It's fun. It's like Batman showing that he has access to things that no one else can do.
Yeah. And so from there, Batman finds out that it leads into this like warehouse house, or this building right next to. It's the one where we've had conversations about this. It's kind of fuzzy here for me.
Yeah, this is where the plot starts going really fast, and you just sort of have to trust these things that you're being told without following them.
Yeah.
So first of all, we get so the bullet comes from the finding of Harvey and another character named Dent.
I do love that. Right. That feels so Joker, like so perfectly true to Joker's. That killing two people. One's Harvey, one's Dent. I love that scene.
But this is and this is where the logic starts to come apart a little bit. If I followed it correctly, the bullet reveals the killer, right? Who has killed Harvey and has killed Dent.
Right.
They then find out his address, and his address is overlooking
but they
the
don't
parade route.
But yes, but there's he ends up finding, there's a point where he finds like 4 different people, and he's like, see if any of them have rooms.
Right.
And so it's like he uses the one fingerprint, I guess, to extrapolate like known accomplices, maybe.
Well, no, I think the fingerprint is just not exact. I mean,
okay.
So the fingerprint
Partial
is like
matches.
Exactly.
Okay.
Who are the matches? If I understand it correctly.
And
And then that's how they get the name of the guy
that owns the
And he's got an apartment overlooking the parade route. But
the way
he doesn't need to have it. I mean, like, that doesn't really make any sense because he's already killed Harvey.
Only because it makes sense because it only if Joker is leaving these things specifically for Batman to find.
Yes.
And again, it's that one thing where like Joker would have had to make sure that man killed Harvey and Dent, because he's the one with the room.
Well, to be fair, he's getting his army is coming from inmates, which we learn pretty soon.
So and you're right. And so this is interesting because this is one of the we're jumping a little around. I want to get back to this, but when Bruce gets to that room in the script, he just looks through the scope.
Yeah.
And then all the stuff happens with the shooting down on the street. And just by accident, a sharpshooter happens to see the reflection off the scope and shoots at Bruce. In the actual movie, it's a setup.
Yeah.
Bruce goes into the room, he looks through the scope, and a timer makes the shade go up, revealing the scope, causing Bruce to get shot at.
Yes.
Which seems to be
planned
Absolutely.
for the Joker to try to get the police to shoot Bruce.
Yeah.
That again becomes one of those, wow, that's a really amazing plan that somehow you knew that Batman could figure out who shot Harvey and Dent, track it down to this apartment, get there at exactly the right time, and then have this timer literally go off.
And the timer's
knowing when
visible.
the parade is going to be at the exact
like the timer's
point.
just sitting there on the windowsill, and Bruce is like, I guess it's just a timer, for timing stuff at the window. I mean, like, I was sort of like, when you look at that and be like, there's probably a bomb here. If I'm seeing a timer, it's a Joker related.
We had a conversation earlier, like up until you talked to me about this, but I always under the impression, the many times I've watched this, was that the guy that shoots at the window was actually working for Joker. And that he was in that was like because of the timer and the shades going up and the guy shooting at the right time. I've always thought that was a trap for Batman from the Joker. And then you said no, that's just one of the sharpshooters, just being a watch out. And we had this conversation about in the real world it wouldn't be that so quick, but it's a movie. That was always my impression.
Well, and they do things to set it up, right? Like in the beginning when Gordon say, like, how's it going up there? Like, it's good, but to be honest, we got a lot of windows up here. So I feel like they're already kind of setting up that they're just scanning constantly.
Well, and if the sharpshooter was already working for Joker, they wouldn't need the timer.
Yeah.
Well, the guy would just be trained on the window, and the moment that Batman showed up, it'd just blow him away.
But the timer could also be, if the scope is in there, maybe there's another person that was in there, and the timer was supposed to be for them for when they know everything's going to go on, and Batman happens to.
But why would the timer be set up to make the shade go up?
I think
that's
from a shooting point of view, maybe the whole idea is the timing is you shoot at Batman when the guns go off, so that all the shooting's happening at once. But again,
but
you
doesn't
don't.
Too. Well, the sniper shots happen, and then there's like a few seconds before the Joker actually turn. It's kind of weird because it's like zip. We got movement, pew, 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 pew. And then they're still about to do the final honor guard shot. And the crowd doesn't even react. Because you're watching and Gordon's just like...
Well, they're doing multiple shots, though. They're doing multiple firings in the air. And that's one of the firings
happens simultaneously with the
sniper shot. And then the final firing is trying to kill the mayor.
But we start to see...
Yes.
Again, where maybe the movie's starting to get overplotted.
I've always been confused by that
And we've also got... all the guys tied up in that
Yep.
apartment because the Joker and his crew have stolen
Their
the
uniforms. and stuff.
uniforms to
Yeah,
do the
why would
honor
he-
guard.
And why would
and-
he leave them alive, tied up? You know, you wonder like why would he? What's the point of that? Like
Only to make it
Slow-
ominous when Bruce shows up and has to slowly piece together what the plan is.
I guess so.
Yeah.
It's starting to get a little
Yeah,
Yes.
complicated.
And then this introduces one of the biggest. Obviously this sequence ends with Gordon dying.
Yes.
Or dying.
Yes.
Um,
But then you go from that moment of him being shot to there's chaos, and then one of the Joker and his men get away, and there's one guy who doesn't.
Yeah,
and
that
then
Harvey
this kind of starts
captures.
peeling back the layer. It just pisses Dent off because of everything they're working for is getting unraveled.
No, it pisses him off because he sees that Rachel's name is on his name tag.
Right, that's
Yeah,
what-
that's the moment he snaps and
Yeah,
drives
but
away.
he still goes after him because he's pissed off, wanting
Sure.
questions, and then he sees the name tag, and then he decides to drive off with him, and then that's kind of
and this and so just to wrap up that second sequence of this act, the goal is to protect the mayor, which again succeeds.
Yeah.
The mayor is protected, but
We lose Gordon.
But again, that's a twist
To the
because we
audience,
haven't
yes.
lost Gordon, right?
Yes.
So
Which when we reveal that, I have to figure. Yeah. Okay.
we
we'll bring it up.
have issues there.
Yeah.
so this gets us to our next sequence, which for me is the sequence where Batman's going to unmask himself.
Right.
So basically, the main two things that are happening are, like you said, this scene where
Gordon's interrogating Harvey's
yes,
interrogating.
Harvey is
Yeah.
interrogating this guy, and Batman stops him, and then Batman basically says, "I'm gonna unveil myself or unmask
Yeah.
myself,
Turn
and then
myself
we-
in, yeah.
And then we go to the press conference the next day, and we also have the scene with Rachel and Alfred.
Yeah.
Before I forget, if we're too far ahead, in the previous sequence, after the end of sequence 4, right at the beginning of sequence 5, we also have the great story from Alfred
The jewel
about
thief.
Burma.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's one of that I think is great. That I want more of that kind of Alfred
Yeah.
versus you should stop being Batman. No, you should keep being Batman. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That I think is great, and that sense that Bruce is naive about the world,
Yeah.
and Alfred's long life experience has taught him things about people,
Sure.
and gives Batman some insight into the Joker that Bruce doesn't understand.
Yeah, it's the great he's Joker represents chaos and is not doing things because he has a plan. He's doing things because for the hell of it, for fun.
Yeah.
Which is a great. Yeah, it's amazing speech, and it ends with this end of that story is also great. Like
When they circle back to it.
when we circle back to it.
Yeah.
But it's also a little confusing thematically, maybe. What it does. I don't know. We'll get to it.
It is a little confusing, kind of thematically a little bit. But yes,
So Batman turning himself in, which obviously ends with him not turning himself in. Harvey turning himself in.
While that's happening, you mentioned this. We were cutting back to Alfred and Rachel, and Rachel's giving Alfred the letter, and then she's like, "When decide when to tell him, you'll know."
Yeah.
And so that's happening.
No, that doesn't happen till the end when they've caught Joker. She leaves Maine Manor, or his penthouse, when she gives him that letter. That happens at the end after they've caught Joker, because that's the
No, it
because she
doesn't.
stays at Wayne.
because she says like he's not being very heroic at all by letting Dent.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, so she's at the manor watching the press conference while Dent
Yes.
gives himself up.
Yeah.
But she doesn't leave the penthouse until Joker is caught, because that's when they think she's safe, because she was marked as.
Sure.
That's when Harvey calls her and say, "Hey, it's safe. We got him. You can come." Now I'm pretty sure she gives him Alfred that letter. Is like, "Hey, I'm leaving. Give this to him when it's right. It's unopened."
Yeah, but that's a little.
So that happens after they've caught Joker.
Maybe I don't. remember.
The moment where she's arguing with Alfred and he's like, "That's not heroic." Yes, that's happening, but she's been told to stay there till they catch the Joker because she was marked as the next target, and so she stays there. She only leaves and gets captured because they think the Joker's been caught. Because
I
the
think
Joker
that's
Right, but she gives the letter to Alfred
Yeah.
before the press conference.
Yes.
Okay, maybe I'm misremembering. That's fair.
She gives him the letter, and then the really important nugget here is, and you mentioned this kind of earlier, but the big thing is there's a moment where Bruce is listening to Dent's speech, and Dent says we shouldn't give in to fear, and that the Batman, yes, he needs to answer to his crimes, but he'll answer to us, not this madman.
Right. Which he just basically got that same speech from Alfred when he's preparing to go to the press conference, and he's like, "What would you have me do?" endure.
Yeah, endure. Yeah.
Endure. And that's a really important scene just because that's setting up.
Which is kind of problematic because...
Again, this is where Alfred says,
where he's
wait,
flipping.
No, you need to endure and know your limits.
Yes. Yes.
Which, to be fair, those can be both true.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, he wants him to be Batman but not kill himself doing it.
I said it was before. It's immediately after the press conference.
Okay.
So the press conference happens. Harvey says, "I am the Batman," and then immediately cuts to Rachel talking to Alfred. Why is this happening?
Yeah.
But there's that great thing there. Bruce is watching him do this, and it clicks in his head a little bit. Even though he's fixing to give himself up, that's kind of a turning point for me. You know, you mentioned this.
Yeah, it's Bruce's kind of internal turning point, I feel like.
He's kind of like, okay, yes.
It's like he's listening, and I think he really does receive from Harvey, but he's still going to do it. Because obviously when Harvey says take the Batman into custody, Bruce kind of starts walking forward or something.
I think he just takes in yes, what you're saying is probably what I should do. Yeah, but he's also Bruce Wayne Batman, so he's going to try to protect people.
Well, and again, I think this is obviously illustrating the struggle of Bruce and what he feels he's supposed to be as Batman. Because up to this point, he still feels that Batman has to be this beacon of hope. He has to be the thing that people look at and think there's something good in this world. And that's the only version of Batman he really understands or really is accepting. And I think there is some character flaw in that because I think that's a selfish version of Batman, obviously, compared to what we end with. That's the version of Batman that makes him feel good as a hero and being looked at as a hero. So I feel like for me, this is where we're kind of wading into how his emotions are affecting him as Batman. And again, probably tying into wanting to give up the cape just to be with Rachel. He's really emotionally acting, I feel like, right now. He's not doing kind of he's not thinking big picture.
I don't know. I mean, I think he's thinking big picture in a different way. Obviously, if he was acting emotionally, he probably wouldn't do it, right?
I think if he was, I think he can't handle the guilt. I think he feels guilty for people dying, and he can't. He says no more blood will be spilled because of me. He says that line to Alfred, and
I think there's a lot going on. I think he's there's some complications there. He wants to be with Rachel.
Yep.
He does maybe have the guilt of the people dying, but he has also talked a lot about what's the best way for Gotham to get where it needs to be, and the understanding that you can't have a vigilante enforcing justice, if you're going to be truly the city that you want to be, right? That Batman can only exist if, again, because the legal system doesn't work.
Sure.
Right. And in a way, Batman wants, as Harvey says when they're at the dinner, he doesn't want to do this forever. And not just because he personally doesn't want to do it forever, but because he
physically can't.
Well, not just because he physically can't, but because as long as he's doing it, it means that the legal
Gotham's
system
broken.
doesn't work.
Yeah.
Exactly. It means that the police are still corrupt,
Batman
or the
is a
DA is
symptom,
corrupt.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there's the great line: you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Right.
Yeah, which kind of ties into that a little bit.
The only problem I have with that line of thinking is he expecting the Joker to just chill after he's turned himself in? Like the Joker's been killing people. He's obviously crazy. What makes him think that, well, if I turn myself in, the Joker really will stop killing people? Like, to me, that seems like a crazy thought up to the point we've seen everything the Joker's done.
It's crazy until people are dying around you and you feel like it's your fault.
I think it can go a couple of different ways. Maybe the emotion of being with Rachel is playing a part. Maybe he believes that Gordon and
Harvey can get him.
Are now strong enough that they can make that happen.
Which is weird because the scene before then, Harvey almost breaks, or he actually doesn't. It appears to Batman that he's breaking.
Right.
Actually, and Harvey says
another little misdirection.
Harvey's like, no, I'm making my own.
Although
luck.
Even then, Batman is right. He says if someone even saw this,
it's breaking the image,
image
of him.
This does bring up another problem that we start seeing, which is, to me anyway, which is this idea of Harvey being sort of the white knight and that everyone needs to believe in Harvey. Harvey represents the rule of law, and if Harvey breaks, it all falls apart.
Yeah.
That begins to start feeling more forced to me. One of the things they imply is that if Harvey breaks in any way or is found to have done something illegal, that everything that Harvey has done will fall apart. Now, previous prosecutions perhaps might, right?
Yeah.
But none of the criminals that have been arraigned presumably have been tried yet. So their cases they wouldn't just release everybody. I mean, all of the people who had been arrested probably would appeal their decision and say that Harvey was, and then, they'd have to go through all that. They would all just
claim that he beat them, that he beat the answers out of him.
Right, but all the people that have, all the mob people, they haven't been tried yet.
Yeah.
They've only been arraigned. So I don't really understand this, because especially the second half of the movie, it gets stronger and stronger. Yeah. This whole idea that everything rides on Harvey and that everyone only believes in Harvey. And if Harvey falls apart, the whole city's going to fall apart, which I think is funny. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but Batman tells Joker at the end, you underestimated people's goodness. Yeah. But then on the other hand, it's like, if Harvey is bad, then everyone's going to lose faith in everything.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the only question this movie is ultimately asking is, are people inherently good or bad? I mean, that's kind of the two opposite. I mean, Joker says they're inherently bad. Batman says they're inherently good. They just need someone to look up to.
Yeah. Well, also, I think there's this other thing is that, yes, the overarching movie goal the physical thing is we got to stop the Joker, but the other thing is, we've talked about this little, but it's
the theme of the movie.
The theme of the movie is, the battle for Gotham's soul. That's really kind of where all this kind of ties in together, and just
yeah. Well, and we're kind of, I know
we're jumping ahead a little bit.
We're pretty much, yeah.
But this is where it's beginning,
yes.
Is this idea that if Harvey falls apart or is seen to have done anything improper, that everything falls apart. Yeah. And to me, that just has always felt overstated. I mean, I get why they want him to be the legal white knight, and it's all, for Gotham to survive, it can't be a vigilante. It's got to be done legally and by the book. And so I get all of that, but it just seems to go too far with this whole belief that if something does happen with Harvey, it'll all fall apart.
Yeah,
anyway.
I agree. And there's even a line from Gordon later when they capture Joker that Joker's, don't touch him. He's made of glass, because if we do anything to him,
the mob lawyer,
the mob will get him off. So I think that's a little. Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I kind of, the world we've built up is that any type of anything negative is like a wedge that any corruption can come in there and destroy everything they're working on. So I see what you're saying, but for me, that's not so bad, because I feel like the world we're living in is that everything is so fragile with Gotham's law and everything that it can break apart any second with any type of small thing. So I see what you're saying, but it don't bother me as bad.
Let's finish this act.
Let's finish this.
This gets us to the last sequence, which of course is the transfer of Harvey, and then the capture of the Joker.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, of course, the big reveal is Gordon's still alive, which, from the way the movie proposes it, Batman had no idea. Is how because of the scene where he's outside of the Gordon's house, the Gordon's family's house.
I think because
he's hanging his head and she yells at him. It seems pretty obvious that he isn't aware. So, for one, I have a couple questions. For one, is like, who did know that he was alive, or did he just somehow fake this by himself? But two is, the biggest question I have is, and I think we discussed it, and there may be one, what was the tactical advantage of Gordon being dead, or presumed dead? Like, what did that allow them to accomplish that, if Gordon was apparently alive, wouldn't have been able to get done?
I think, for me, and I think it's very, very weak, first of all, that this, yes, I think you're right.
It's good for the audience. It's an emotional,
it's a very problematic thing. I think the only answer I could think of is this. The people that tell Gordon's wife that he's dead are basically corrupt cops. So it's like he is.
Well, the only one there was one that's not. It's the 20-year guy that ends up beating the Joker at the end. He is not, at least in the movie, portrayed to be a corrupt cop. It's only Wirtz and Ramirez.
Right, but isn't there one of the corrupt cops?
Ramirez is there, I think.
Ramirez is there. So the idea for me, the only thing I could think of, I think it's weak, is that Gordon is after he gets shot, which I don't think he planned, but it's like, okay, this is not my opportunity to work basically as a vigilante, or be like a second
underneath the radar.
That way, the corrupt cops that work for me and also work for Joker don't know that I'm going to be there. That's the only thing I can think of. But I think that he did tell them, because after Joker gets caught, that moment, Ramirez takes Dent to them. So it sounds like he did tell them, and therefore Joker now knows that Gordon's alive and wants to get caught. And then Ramirez, from that moment, takes Dent to the warehouse. You know what I'm saying? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, and I never really thought about that side of it. I've always been focused on the Joker, but
it makes no sense. Though,
it doesn't really make any sense that he needs to. Now there is something, I wish I could find it, where it's pretty clear that Harvey does not know.
No, Harvey, because when he opens, because Gordon opens the door, he's
really
like, Harvey,
do
you
hold
play that
things
close
to the vest.
Yes,
but I thought there was something that implied that Batman did know about Gordon not being dead.
Well, I don't think so, because I mean, Batman's knocked out when we find out Joker's alive. Joker's
Gordon's
got
alive,
the knife.
Yeah.
Batman's unconscious, and we got you, son of a bitch.
Yeah, because we go from that immediately to the
and even Batman getting like that whole moment where Batman's like about to crush the Joker and then just turns his bike and crashes. That to me wasn't a part of Batman's plan. I mean, he didn't plan on going unconscious at any point.
Oh no, and I don't think the plan is for Gordon to somehow jump out and get Joker,
Right.
but I do think he was. Some reason, I always thought he was aware of Gordon's.
I thought that too, just
fake
because
death.
I feared Batman knows everything kind of thing, and if anyone could help him do that, it would be
just
Gordon.
that scene though when they're telling the wife and Batman. Why would Batman hang out there so she can see him?
I agree. That scene does
sell
imply.
The only thing I can think of is to sell it to Ramirez or someone, because they see him because everyone knew Gordon and Batman were tight. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yes, but it's just a weird thing. Again, I think the only thing I can think of is that he trusted Ramirez, because even at the very end it's revealed that she trusts Ramirez, so Gordon thinks Ramirez is good.
Yeah.
So he tells Ramirez the plan. Ramirez tells Joker. Joker's expecting it, so then Ramirez takes Dent afterwards to the thing. That's the only thing I can think of. That's complicated.
But it is, and
it's really weak.
And again, it's getting really complicated by the end of this act, where it's the Joker planned to get caught.
Yes.
So he knew Dent wasn't Batman because he assumed Batman would help catch him.
Well, one thing, let's back up a little bit. One thing in the script I think is that's different from the movie. In the script, it seems like he actually thinks that Dent could be Batman. And then in the movie, though, it seems like he just kind of like expects.
No, I don't think he knows. I don't know. He has a couple looks.
There's
like
a
when the
line.
Batman first shows up, he's kind of like looking back and forth between the armored car and Batman. He goes, huh. He kind of makes that like he's like putting things together.
Well,
but at the same time, if he didn't think Dent was Batman, then why would he have plans to capture Dent after he's captured by Batman?
I think he believes Dent,
I
whether
think so
he
too.
should or not.
I
He
think
does
so
seem
too.
to have believed Dent. Either he believes Dent and he's trying to get Dent because he's Batman, or he knows that Batman will show up.
And he still knows that
Just
Dent
like
is
Dent
the
knows
White
that
Knight.
Batman will show up.
Well, there's a line. He says, Joker's stuck. Is that him, Joker? Anyone could be driving that thing. Stay on Dent.
Right.
So that's in the script. That's not in the movie.
It's not in the movie.
But the one moment we do get is when Batman finally appears on the pod with the motorcycle, and he goes, and that's more like it. Like, because he's kind of saying, like, anyway.
Yeah, because he actually physically sees him.
So we don't really know. But since Dent says my plan was to hopefully have Batman save me and rescue me and capture Joker, that I guess that's Joker's plan too, is that Batman will show up and he'll let himself be captured by Batman.
That's the only way he would have a contingency to take Harvey from the scene, right? Because he couldn't have had time to plan that between getting caught by Gordon and because that's literally immediately after they're putting Joker in the car, and then Harvey gets in with Ramirez or with Wirtz.
Well, yeah, and this is where to me the whole thing just gets ridiculous.
It does,
because first of all, Harvey has said that morning that he's Batman. By the evening, Joker has gotten information about the route, knows that where they're bringing Gordon, or where they're bringing Harvey, has lined up semis and garbage trucks, and I mean he's done all of this in less than a day, and he has also planned for the kidnapping of
Rachel and Harvey
afterwards,
assuming they're not Batman.
So that seems to imply that he has guessed that Harvey is not Batman, but or it's a plan B. And so then he's got all of that set up. He also is planning to be captured, but Batman crashes his bike. So
in that moment, he's like going to just kill Batman and be done,
what's he going to do? Right.
Or take his mask
so
off.
I guess he doesn't need to do the rest of the plan if he gets Batman, but then he gets caught. And so that works out. Like, it's
very
just,
smart.
this is where it just,
It does.
you
Yeah.
just go, okay,
True,
this
true.
is getting out of hand.
Especially what happens next, even.
Yes.
It's even crazier.
Yes.
But one thing I want to talk about, just not plot wise, I want to talk about the batpod is just so cool.
Yes.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
It's a great action sequence as
It is.
well.
It is.
Yes.
I love
It's maybe
so much fun.
Oh,
Yeah.
it is.
And-
the trucks, even the helicopter with the lines.
There is some things if you really get into like the staging of the driving sequences. There's actually some really weird continuity errors and even like.
But no one cares in that
I know,
kind of
but
sequence.
I mean, if you really dive into it, it's actually really problematic. But it's amazing. And also there's this escalation of vehicles and like he has the tumbler in the first movie. It's in the second one, but then it becomes the batpod and he never drives the tumbler ever again throughout the rest of the series. So it's like he's always changing, and once he changes, he stays with that.
And it's usually an important moment. Yeah.
It's an important moment.
I also love, again, just Heath Ledger's kind of ad-libs. Most of it, and not any of it's in the script, just all the things he says. And like, I love my job. I love my job. Like, those kinds of things just bring it even more energy and life.
I mean, a huge thing is flipping that truck. That's an amazing moment.
Yeah.
And it's real.
And it's a great stunt that they
the batpod hitting the wall. I remember watching that in theaters, the batpod hitting the wall and flipping back around. You're just like, fuck, that's cool.
Yeah, it is. It's
anyway.
so cool.
Hey everyone, sorry about that, but the episode ran a little bit too long this time. If you're wondering, of course, we ended this one in Act 1 and Act 2. Come back next time for Act 3 and 4. If you want to follow us on all of our social media platforms, please check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and of course TikTok. We know you watch those TikToks. And for more podcast stuff, go to podcastingfor1.com. Check out our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, that notification bell, leave comments in the section below. And yeah, thank you again for watching. My name is Donovan Thompson. Daniel Wingfield was sitting here. Bruce Hutchinson was sitting here. And I promise we have spoken.